The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Defiant. Captain Allison Murphy had spent 15 years in space, but she never tired of the view. Earth hung like a blue jewel below, peaceful and unaware of what was coming. "Captain, we have unknown contacts at the edge of the solar system," Lieutenant Kyle Bennett called from his station. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. "How many?" Allison asked, straightening her uniform. "At least 50 large vessels." "Ma'am, nothing like we've ever seen before." Allison's heart sank. Humanity had only recently reached Mars. They had a small fleet of defensive ships, but nothing that could handle a threat of this size. "Send the alert to Admiral Powell, all ships to battle stations," she ordered, "and open a channel to the unknown fleet." For 3 days they tried to talk to the alien ships. For 3 days, there was only silence as the strange vessels moved closer to Earth. Scientists and language experts worked around the clock to find a way to communicate. Military leaders from all nations met in emergency sessions. The world held its breath. Dr. Ethan Cole hadn't slept in those 3 days. As Earth's leading expert on possible alien biology, he had been called to the United Defense Headquarters in Geneva. "These ship designs suggest an advanced civilization," he explained to the room full of grim-faced generals and politicians. "But we know nothing about their intentions." Admiral Frank Powell, the head of Earth's Unified Military Command, stood at the window looking at the night sky. "We'll know soon enough," he said quietly. The first attack came at dawn. The alien ships, now identified as the Vordax Imperium by a brief message they sent just before attacking, struck Earth's orbital defenses with overwhelming force. Stations exploded into clouds of debris. Defense satellites went dark. Only a handful of Earth ships, including the Defiant, managed to evade the first wave. On Earth, people looked up to see fire in the sky as debris burned through the atmosphere. Then came the precision strikes. New York, Tokyo, London, Delhi, Beijing. Every major city was hit not with nuclear weapons, but with something almost worse. Targeted beams that destroyed all electronic systems and killed thousands instantly. In the chaos that followed, strange ships landed in city centers. Tall, insect-like creatures emerged and began rounding up humans. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez led her squad through the ruins of what had once been downtown Los Angeles. They moved silently, avoiding Vordax patrols. Their mission was to rescue civilians, trapped in a hospital, and bring them to the safety of the mountains. "They're taking people alive," she whispered into her radio. "Loading them onto transport ships." "Copy that," came Admiral Powell's voice from the hidden command center. "We're seeing the same pattern worldwide. Get those civilians out and return to base. We need to figure out what they want with our people." Dr. Cole found out first. Working. From a makeshift lab in an underground bunker, he examined tissue samples from a dead Vordax soldier brought in by one of Rodriguez's teams. "Their DNA is breaking down," he told Admiral Powell. "They have some kind of genetic disease that's killing them slowly. And our DNA, human DNA, might be the cure they're looking for." Powell's face hardened. "So they're harvesting us." "Like crops," Cole nodded. "But there's something else. Their technology is beyond anything we have, but their biology is surprisingly similar to ours in basic structure. Almost as if..." "As if what, Doctor?" "As if we're related somehow. Distant cousins, separated by millions of years of evolution." Above Earth, Captain Murphy's Defiant hid behind the moon, watching as Vordax ships established a blockade around the planet. She had saved as many of her crew as possible, but the ship was damaged and running low on supplies. "We can't just hide here forever," Lieutenant Bennett said as they studied the enemy fleet movements. "We won't," Allison replied, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "But we need a plan first. The Vordax have us outgunned and outmatched." Her communications officer interrupted. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Powell." Powell's face appeared on screen, tired and with a fresh scar across his cheek. "Captain Murphy, good to see the Defiant survived." "Barely, sir. What's the situation on Earth?" "Bad, but not hopeless. The Vordax are focusing on major population centers. They're collecting humans, not destroying us completely. That gives us time. He leaned closer to the camera. I'm organizing all remaining military forces for a coordinated resistance. But we need your ship as our eyes and ears up there. Understood, sir. What about the civilians? We're moving them to hidden locations, old military bunkers, cave systems, remote areas. A woman named Diane Foster, she was a weapons engineer at MIT, is already working on adapting some salvaged Vordax technology. We might find a weakness. After the transmission ended, Allison stared at Earth, partially hidden by the moon's edge. Somewhere down there, 7 billion people were fighting for survival. Orders, Captain? Bennett asked. Set course for the asteroid belt, she decided. We'll establish a base there outside their patrol routes. Then we start hitting their supply lines. With just one ship? Allison smiled grimly. For now. But every ship we destroy gives Earth a better chance. And every day we fight gives our people time to find a way to beat them. 3 weeks later, Dr. Cole made a breakthrough. Working with a team of scientists in the underground facility, he had been studying the Vordax biology and the strange devices they use to process human captives. They're not just harvesting random humans, he explained, to Admiral Powell. They're selecting specific genetic markers. Our immune system has something theirs doesn't, a natural resistance to their genetic plague. Powell leaned over the microscope. Can we use this against them? Maybe. Cole rubbed his tired eyes. But first, we need more data, more samples, of their technology. If we could capture one of their processing ships intact. Powell nodded. I'll contact Sergeant Rodriguez. Her team has been successful at infiltrating Vordax facilities. That night, as Earth survivors huddled in hidden shelters, as the Defiant silently stalked Vordax supply ships in the asteroid belt, as scientists worked tirelessly to understand their enemy, no one knew that this was just the beginning. The Vordax Imperium was only the first wave. Behind them waited the true power, the Arcturian Dominion who had sent the Vordax to prepare Earth for their arrival. And they had been watching humanity for a very long time. But humanity was not going quietly. In hidden bases and makeshift labs and guerrilla camps and orbiting ships, the resistance was growing. And soon the invaders would learn exactly what it meant to have dared invade Earth. 3 months after the invasion began, Earth was a different world. Major cities lay in ruins. Billions of people hid in the shadows, afraid of Vordax patrols that swept through neighborhoods collecting humans for their processing ships. But humans were not easy prey. They fought back. Captain Allison Murphy's ship now looked very different. The sleek lines of the Defiant were covered with salvaged Vordax armor plating. Her crew had grown skilled at quick strikes against enemy supply ships. They would appear from hiding spots in the asteroid belt, attack with precision and vanish before reinforcements arrived. Another successful raid, Lieutenant Bennett said as they pulled away from the burning wreck of a Vordax transport. That's the 5th this month. Allison nodded, but her eyes were tired. Not enough. For every ship we destroy, they bring in 3 more. The Defiant had become a symbol of hope for the resistance. They used the ship as a mobile command center, moving between hidden bases in the asteroid belt. Each base held survivors who had escaped Earth on whatever ships they could find when the invasion began. On Earth, the fight was even harder. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez crouched in the ruins of what had once been a shopping mall outside Chicago. Her team had grown from 12 soldiers to a mixed group of 30 fighters, former police officers, military veterans, and civilians who had learned to fight quickly or die. Patrol coming, whispered Sam Green, her scout. 2 walkers and about 10-foot soldiers. Rodriguez nodded and signaled to her team. They had done this many times before. The trap was set. As the insect-like Vordax soldiers passed between the collapsed buildings, explosive charges detonated. The walkers, tall mechanical suits controlled by Vordax pilots, stumbled in the rubble. Rodriguez's team opened fire from hidden positions. "Remember, we need one alive," she shouted above the noise of battle. When it was over, 9 Vordax soldiers and both walkers were destroyed. 1 wounded alien was secured and sedated for transport. "Get it to Dr. Cole," Rodriguez ordered. and grab any tech that isn't damaged too badly. Back at the main resistance base hidden deep in the Rocky Mountains, Diane Foster hunched over a workbench covered with alien technology. She had been an engineer before the invasion, designing satellite systems. Now she was trying to understand Vordax technology and find ways to use it against them. "Any progress?" asked Paul Carter as he entered her lab. The former astronaut now led supply missions, using his knowledge of remote locations to establish hidden caches of food and weapons across the country. Diane held up what looked like a small metal disc. "I think this is how they track each other. If we can figure out the signal, we might be able to create false readings, make them think their forces are where they aren't." Paul nodded. "That would help a lot. We lost 3 people in the last raid when they called in reinforcements too quickly." An alarm sounded and Paul checked his communicator. "Dr. Cole wants everyone in the command center, says he's made a breakthrough." The command center was a large cave fitted with salvaged computers and communication equipment. Admiral Powell stood in the center, looking at a map showing Vordax activity across North America. Dr. Cole waited nearby, his face showing excitement for the first time in months. "What have you found?" Admiral Powell asked, as the room filled with resistance leaders. Dr. Cole displayed images on the main screen. "Thanks to the live specimen Sergeant Rodriguez's team captured, we've confirmed my theory. The Vordax are suffering from genetic degradation. Their cells can't properly reproduce anymore. They're literally falling apart at a genetic level." "And they're using us to fix that?" Diane asked. "Yes, but here's the interesting part. When I compared their DNA to ours, I found similarities that can't be coincidence. I believe the Vordax and humans share a common ancestor somewhere millions of years in the past." The room went quiet as people processed this information. "You're saying we're related to these things?" Rodriguez looked disgusted. "Very distantly," Cole clarified. "But yes, and that's why our genetic material works to help repair theirs. The captives they're taking aren't being killed. They're being used as living genetic donors. Their bodies are kept alive while the Vordax extract what they need." Admiral Powell stepped forward. "Does this help us fight them?" "Yes." Cole nodded, eagerly. "It gives us 2 advantages. First, I can create a virus that targets their specific genetic structure without harming humans. Second, I found this in their communication logs." He showed a message written in strange symbols. "They're not acting alone. They report to someone they call the Dominion, and they're afraid of failing them. In orbit around Earth, the Defiant received this information via encrypted transmission. Captain Murphy shared it with her officers." "So there's someone bigger behind all this," Lieutenant Bennett said. "Great. As if the Vordax weren't bad enough." "But they have a weakness now," Allison pointed out, "and fear of their masters might make them desperate, careless." She brought up scans of a large Vordax ship in Earth orbit. "This is their main processing vessel. If we could capture it, we'd free thousands of human captives and gain access to their central communication network." "That ship is heavily guarded, Captain," Bennett warned. "We'd need more than just the Defiant." "We'll have more." Allison smiled slightly. "Admiral Powell has been coordinating with resistance cells worldwide. They're ready to launch simultaneous attacks on Vordax ground bases. While they're dealing with that, we strike from above." Far from Earth, in the blackness of space beyond, Neptune, a much larger fleet, waited. The Arcturian Dominion had sent the Vordax as their first wave to test Earth's defenses and begin harvesting the valuable human genetic material. Now the Arcturian commander received troubling reports of human resistance. "The Vordax are failing," the commander told his council. "These humans are more resourceful than we anticipated." "Should we intervene?" asked one of his officers. "Not yet. Let the Vordax continue their work for now. If they fail completely, then we will show these humans what real power looks like." Back on Earth, Paul Carter led a team to an abandoned Vordax landing site. They found something unexpected: a group of humans working with the aliens, helping them locate hiding places. "Traitors," one of his team members whispered. Paul held up his hand for silence. "No. Look at their eyes. They're drugged or controlled somehow." They followed the group to a small Vordax ship. Inside, they discovered devices attached to the humans. Next, we need to capture one of these collaborators, Paul decided. Dr. Cole needs to see this technology. As the Resistance prepared for their coordinated attack, Lieutenant Bennett made a surprising discovery while analyzing Vordax ship designs. "Captain, look at this," he called to Allison. "Their main power conduits all connect through a single junction on the lower deck. It's poorly protected, almost like a design flaw." Allison studied the schematics. "That's our way in. One well-placed explosive there would disable their systems long enough for us to board." The pieces were coming together. Dr. Cole had his virus. Diane Foster had developed shields that could briefly withstand Vordax weapons, and now they had found a weakness in the enemy ships. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had hope. The Resistance was ready to strike back. The day of the attack came 6 months after the invasion began. All across Earth, Resistance fighters prepared their weapons. Some were military personnel with years of training. Others were ordinary people, teachers, farmers, office workers, who had learned to fight when their world was taken from them. Admiral Powell stood in the Mountain Command Center, watching the global map as reports came in. Green dots showed Resistance groups ready to strike at Vordax bases. A blue dot in orbit represented the Defiant, positioned to attack the main processing ship. "All teams report ready," his communications officer said. Powell took a deep breath and gave the order everyone had been waiting for. "Begin Operation Thunderstrike." On the Defiant, Captain Allison Murphy addressed her crew. "Today we take back our people. The Vordax think they can harvest humans like crops. We're going to show them how wrong they are." Lieutenant Bennett checked the ship's weapon systems. Shields enhanced with Foster's technology. Weapons loaded with Cole's virus bombs. "We're as ready as we'll ever be." The Defiant emerged from hiding and accelerated toward the massive Vordax processing ship. At the same time, Resistance fighters worldwide launched attacks on Vordax ground bases. The coordinated assault caught the aliens by surprise. In Chicago, Sergeant Rodriguez led her team against a major collection center where humans were held before transport to orbit. They moved quickly, using the sewers to approach undetected. "Remember, our primary goal is freeing the captives," she told her fighters. "Don't get distracted hunting Vordax unless they're in your way." When they burst into the facility, they found hundreds of humans in holding cells. The guards were quickly overwhelmed by Rodriguez's team. As they began freeing the prisoners, one of her fighters called out, "Sergeant, you need to see this." In a separate section, they found something unexpected: a Vordax commander, taller and more decorated than the others they had seen. It was injured, purple blood seeping from wounds likely sustained during their attack. "Secure it," Rodriguez ordered. "Dr. Cole will want this one alive." The commander hissed as they approached. "You cannot win," it said in broken English. "The Dominion comes. You are all already dead." In the skies above London, Paul Carter piloted a small stolen Vordax shuttle. His mission was to disable the communication tower that coordinated Vordax forces across Europe. Diane Foster sat beside him, carrying the device she had spent weeks perfecting. "There it is," Paul said, pointing to a tall structure amid the ruins of the city. "Can your jammer work from this distance?" Diane checked her readings. "We need to get closer. Right above it would be best." Paul guided the shuttle lower, dodging enemy fire from ground forces who had spotted them. "This close enough?" Diane activated her device. It emitted a pulse that matched the frequency of Vordax communications but scrambled the data. "Done. Their comms should be jammed for about 20 minutes. In orbit, the Defiant approached the processing ship. Smaller Vordax vessels moved to intercept, but many had been pulled away to deal with the ground attacks. "Target their power junction," Captain Murphy ordered. The Defiant fired precision torpedoes at the vulnerable spot Lieutenant Bennett had identified. They struck with perfect accuracy, causing cascading power failures throughout the massive ship. Its lights flickered and weapons systems went offline. "Boarding teams ready," Allison said. "Let's go get our people." She led the first team herself, docking with the crippled vessel and cutting through its hull. Inside, they found corridors filled with confused Vordax soldiers trying to restore power. The humans moved quickly, using Dr. Cole's virus bombs to incapacitate large groups without having to fight each one. They reached the central processing chamber and were horrified by what they found. Thousands of humans floated in transparent tanks, tubes connected to their bodies extracting blood and tissue samples. Medical machines pumped drugs to keep them unconscious. "Get them out," Allison ordered, her voice tight with anger. "All of them." As her team worked to free the captives, Lieutenant Bennett led another team to the ship's command center. They fought through heavier resistance, losing 2 team members before securing the bridge. "Captain, we've taken the command center," Bennett reported over the radio. "You need to see what we found here." When Allison arrived, Bennett showed her the ship's communication logs. "They're not just reporting to superiors, they're sending all the genetic data they collect to these coordinates." He pointed to a star map showing a location beyond Neptune. "The Arcturian Dominion," Allison said, remembering Dr. Cole's discovery. "So they're out there watching." Back on Earth, Admiral Powell received reports of victories from around the world. Resistance forces had freed thousands of captives and destroyed critical Vordax infrastructure. But the success came with heavy losses. Dr. Cole examined the captured Vordax commander in a secure facility. The alien was dying, its body breaking, down faster now that it was cut off from whatever treatments had been keeping it alive. "Why Earth?" Cole asked it. "There are other worlds you could have harvested." The commander's compound eyes fixed on him. "Humans. Special. Your DNA. Different. The Dominion has watched you for centuries." "What do you mean? Watched us?" "Seeds. Planted long ago. We are distant kin. The Arcturians. They seeded many worlds. Yours was, forgotten. Evolved differently. Now valuable." The revelation stunned Dr. Cole. "You're saying humans and Vordax both came from genetic material planted by these Arcturians?" "Yes. But you developed immunity they need. Immune to the breaking. Worth harvesting." Before Cole could ask more questions, the commander's body convulsed and it died, its cellular structure finally collapsing completely. In orbit, the Resistance had taken control of the processing ship. All captives were being transferred to the Defiant and other small vessels that had joined the attack. Captain Murphy stood on the bridge, looking at the star map showing the Arcturian fleet's position. "They'll come now," she said to Bennett. "We've hurt their harvesting operation badly. They won't leave that unanswered." "What do we do?" he asked. "We're not ready to face a bigger threat." Allison studied the captured ship around them. "Maybe we don't have to fight them yet. This ship has the communications equipment to reach the Arcturian fleet, and it has data on every Vordax operation on Earth." "You have a plan," Bennett said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, we turn their own intelligence against them. Show them that humanity isn't the easy target they thought we were." As Earth celebrated its first major victory against the invaders, no one realized that the real battle was just beginning. The Arcturian Dominion had already dispatched a fleet to deal with the Vordax failure. They were coming to take personal control of the Earth harvest, but they didn't understand what they were facing. Humans didn't just fight for survival like other species they had conquered. Humans fought with a determination and creativity the galaxy had never seen before. And soon, the Arcturians would learn exactly what it meant to have dared invade Earth. 2 weeks after the successful attack on the Vordax processing ship, Earth prepared for the arrival of the Arcturian Dominion. The captured Vordax vessel had been moved to the far side of the moon, where engineers and scientists worked day and night to understand its technology. Captain Allison Murphy stood in what had once been the ship's command center, now filled with human technicians. Diane Foster worked at the main console, her fingers moving quickly across the alien controls she had learned to operate. "How soon until they arrive?" Allison asked. Diane checked the long-range sensors. Based on their last communication, 3 days. Maybe 4. Lieutenant Bennett joined them, carrying a tablet with the latest updates from Earth. "Admiral Powell has moved most of our forces into hidden bunkers. If the Arcturians are anything like the Vordax, they'll hit major cities. First," Allison nodded, And we'll be ready this time. She looked at the weapons systems they had installed on the captured ship. Have Dr. Cole's virus bombs been loaded? Yes, but we don't know if they'll work on Arcturians, Bennett warned. We have no samples of their biology. It's still our best shot, Allison said. What about the communication plan? Diane looked up from her work. Ready. I figured out how to tap into their fleet's communication network. When they arrive, we can broadcast anything you want them to hear. On Earth, Dr. Cole made a discovery that changed everything. He had been studying the complete data, files from the Vordax ship which included historical records going back centuries. Admiral, you need to see this, he said, when Powell visited his lab. The Arcturians didn't just seed Earth with genetic material millions of years ago. They've been manipulating our development. He showed Powell images of strange objects found at archaeological sites around the world. Objects that had been dismissed as hoaxes or mysteries. These are Arcturian monitoring devices. They've been watching us evolve, guiding certain developments. Some human technological leaps weren't entirely our own work. Powell's face darkened. Why? If they were guiding us, why invade now? Because we did something they didn't expect, Cole explained, excitement in his voice. We developed immunity to the genetic plague that's killing species across the galaxy, including the Vordax. But we did it naturally, through our own evolution. Something about Earth, about our environment, led to this development. So they sent the Vordax to harvest this immunity from us. Yes, but they didn't expect us to fight back so effectively. The Vordax were supposed to be unstoppable to a species at our technological level. Powell looked at the star charts showing the approaching Arcturian fleet. Will knowing this help us fight them? Maybe, Cole said. At the very least, it gives us something they want badly enough to come all this way. That means we have leverage. Sergeant Rodriguez and her team had been assigned to protect Dr. Cole's facility. The successful raid on the Chicago Collection Center had made her a hero to the resistance. Now she trained new fighters while guarding Earth's most valuable scientific minds. Movement at the perimeter, one of her scouts reported. Not Vordax. Different signatures. Rodriguez grabbed her weapon. How many? Small group. 5 or 6, moving carefully. Arcturian advance scouts, she guessed. They're checking our defenses before the main fleet arrives. She led a team to intercept the intruders. They moved silently through the forest surrounding the facility, using the tactics they had perfected against Vordax patrols. What they found surprised them. The aliens were tall and slender, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. They moved with a grace the insect-like Vordax lacked. Hold position, Rodriguez whispered to her team. Let's see what they do. The Arcturians examined the area carefully, taking samples of soil and plants. They spoke to each other in musical tones that rose and fell like singing. They don't know we're watching them, one of Rodriguez's team whispered. Good. Keep it that way. Record everything they do. In orbit, aboard the captured Vordax ship, Lisa Winters worked tirelessly to decode the Arcturian communications. As the intelligence officer assigned to Captain Murphy's command, she had a gift for languages and patterns. Captain, she called, out. I've broken their basic command codes. Listen to this. She played a recording of Arcturian speech, then its translation. Earth resistance stronger than expected. Vordax failure complete. Prepare full harvest protocol. No survivors needed. Allison's face hardened. They're not planning to keep us alive as donors like the Vordax. They're going to take what they need and eliminate us completely. There's more, Lisa continued. They've been transmitting data about Earth to other fleets. This isn't their only force. They have ships scattered across the galaxy, harvesting other worlds. Other victims like us, Bennett said quietly. Allison studied the star maps. Are they communicating with these other worlds? The ones they're harvesting? Yes, constantly, sharing data, reporting progress. A plan began to form in Allison's mind. Can we tap into that network? Send our own message to these other worlds? Lisa considered this. Maybe. The Arcturians use a standard protocol across their fleet. If we can mimic their authorization codes... Do it, Allison ordered. Connect us to every world fighting against them. 3 days later, the Arcturian fleet arrived in Earth orbit. Their ships were beautiful, graceful curves of shimmering metal that made the Vordax vessels look crude by comparison. But their beauty hid deadly purpose. Supreme Commander Zextal stood on the bridge of the Arcturian flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. The Vordax were weak, he told his officers. We will not make the same mistakes. Begin the harvest immediately. Target their remaining military installations first. As his fleet moved into position, something unexpected happened. The supposedly defeated Vordax ship hidden behind the moon suddenly powered up and broadcast on all frequencies. On screens across the Arcturian fleet appeared the face of Captain Allison Murphy. Behind her stood humans of different races and backgrounds, all with the same determined expression. "Attention, Arcturian Dominion," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You have made a serious miscalculation. Earth is not defenseless. Earth is not yours to harvest." Zextal laughed. "A brave speech from the doomed. Cut this transmission." "You can't," Allison replied, as if hearing him. "Right now, this message is being broadcast to every world you've invaded or plan to invade. We've broken your communication codes." For the first time, Zextal felt a flicker of concern. "Jammed their signal." "Too late," Allison continued. "We've also sent them the weakness we discovered in your genetic structure. The same weakness that's killing the Vordax. You created us as an experiment millions of years ago. Now your creation has surpassed you." On Earth, Admiral Powell watched the broadcast from his command center. Dr. Cole stood beside him, holding the data that could change the course of the war. Complete analysis of Arcturian biology, pieced together from Vordax records and samples taken by Rodriguez's team. "Will they believe her?" Powell asked. "They don't need to," Cole replied. "They just need to doubt. And while they're doubting, we strike." Across the solar system, humanity prepared for the real battle, not just for survival, but for freedom from those who had manipulated their entire history. And they weren't fighting alone anymore. On a dozen worlds, other species watched Captain Murphy's broadcast and began to question their Arcturian gods for the first time. The Arcturian response to Captain Murphy's broadcast was swift and brutal. Energy weapons rained down on Earth's surface, targeting the locations of known resistance bases. Cities already damaged by the Vordax were hit again. Millions died in the first wave. But humanity was ready this time. Most resistance forces had already moved to hidden locations. Admiral Powell directed the defense from a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, coordinating with groups worldwide. "They're trying to flush us out," he told his officers. "Don't take the bait. Stay hidden and prepare for Phase 2. In orbit, the captured Vordax ship carrying Captain Murphy and her crew fled from attacking Arcturian vessels. The ship wasn't built for speed, but Lieutenant Bennett's skill kept them just ahead of their pursuers. "We've drawn 6 ships away from Earth," he reported. "That's 6 fewer bombarding the surface," Allison nodded grimly. "Good, keep them chasing us." She turned to Lisa Winters. "Any response from the other worlds yet?" Lisa monitored the communications network they had tapped into. 3 systems have confirmed receipt of our message. 2 are already fighting back against their Arcturian overlords. Her eyes widened suddenly. "Captain, I'm picking up a new signal. It's coming from inside the Arcturian fleet." "Inside?" "Put it through," a voice spoke in halting English. "This, helpers. We serve Arcturians. Many cycles. Your message gives hope. We help." "Who are you?" Allison asked. "Workers. Taken from world long ago. Used as servants. Many like us. On all ships." Allison looked at her officers. "They have slaves on their ships and they're offering to help us." On Earth, Sergeant Rodriguez led her team through underground tunnels toward an Arcturian landing site. Dr. Cole had created a new weapon, a modified version of his virus that targeted the Arcturian genetic structure directly. "Remember," she told her fighters, "we need to get this canister into their air filtration system. Once inside, it will spread through the entire ship." They emerged from the tunnels a mile from the Arcturian vessel that had landed to begin collecting human specimens. The ship was beautiful, a graceful silver structure that seemed to flow rather than being built. "No guards outside," her scout reported. "They're too confident." "Good for us," Rodriguez replied. "Move in quietly." They approached the ship using the cover of ruined buildings. When they reached the hull, Dr. Cole's analysis proved correct. There were maintenance hatches just where he predicted. They placed the virus canister inside the largest one and retreated quickly. Within an hour, the Arcturian ship's crew began to fall ill. Their perfectly ordered collection operation fell into chaos. In space, Supreme Commander Zextal received disturbing reports from across his fleet. "What do you mean, uprisings? The servant species cannot possibly organize such actions." His subordinate looked afraid. "They all received the same message from Earth, Commander, and now our crews are falling ill on ships where no illness has ever been recorded." Zextal's 4 hands clenched in anger. "Bring me the human ship. I want this Captain Murphy before me. Now!" The Arcturian flagship deployed a weapon unlike anything humans had seen before, a beam that could disable all systems on any vessel it touched. When it struck the Vordak ship carrying Captain Murphy and her crew, they found themselves being pulled toward the massive Arcturian vessel. "We've lost all power," Bennett reported. "They're bringing us in." Allison stood calmly. "Just as we planned. Everyone knows what to do?" Her officers nodded. This had been the riskiest part of their strategy, allowing themselves to be captured to get inside the Arcturian command ship. As they were brought on board, Arcturian guards, tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms, surrounded them. Captain Murphy, Lieutenant Bennett, Lisa Winters, and 3 other officers were taken to the ship's command center. Supreme Commander Zextal waited for them, sitting on a raised platform that highlighted his importance. His skin was a deeper blue than the others, with gold patterns that seemed to shift and move. "So you are the voice that has caused such trouble," he said, looking at Murphy. "You look so small, so fragile, yet you dare to challenge the Dominion." Allison met his gaze without fear. "We dare because you left us no choice. You came to our world to harvest us like crops." "It is the natural order," Zextal replied. "The Dominion seeds worlds, guides evolution, then harvests what is needed. We have done this for millennia. You are not special." "But we are," Allison countered. "You know we are, or you wouldn't have come yourself. Something about humans scares you." A flicker of emotion crossed Zextal's face. "You developed immunity to the breaking, the genetic plague that has threatened our civilization for generations. An immunity that should have been impossible with your primitive technology and limited understanding." "Not primitive," Lisa Winters said suddenly. "Different. You guided our evolution, but Earth itself shaped us in ways you didn't expect." While they spoke, Bennett carefully activated a small device hidden in his uniform. Throughout the flagship, the servant species who had contacted them received a signal. The moment to act had come. On Earth, Admiral Powell received confirmation that the virus was spreading through the Arcturian landing parties. "Launch Phase 3, he ordered. All across the planet, resistance fighters targeted Arcturian ships weakened by the spreading illness. In the Arcturian flagship's command center, alarms began to sound. Zextal received urgent reports from his officers. "Sabotage throughout the fleet. Servant species in revolt. Ground forces failing." He turned furious eyes to Captain Murphy. "What have you done?" "We showed them the truth," she replied. "That you're not gods, that you can be defeated." Across the room, small maintenance hatches opened. The servant species, small green-skinned beings with large eyes, poured out in numbers the Arcturians had never imagined possible. They overwhelmed the guards before they could react. Zextal rose to his feet. "This changes nothing. I command the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. I can still reduce your world to ash." "No," came a new voice. Admiral Powell appeared on the main communication screen. Behind him stood representatives from a dozen resistance groups worldwide. "Your fleet is crippled. Your servants have turned against you, and now you will answer for what you've done." Allison stepped forward, her voice clear and firm. "You dared invade Earth. You thought us weak, primitive, easy prey, but you have awakened a force beyond your comprehension. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. And today, humanity will not be silenced." Her words echoed through the ship and across the communication network to every world under Arcturian control. On each of those worlds, oppressed species looked up in hope as they heard a voice that dared to challenge their masters. The dominion that had lasted for thousands of years began to crumble in a single day, brought down not by superior weapons or technology, but by the determination of humans who refused to be harvested, and by the hope they gave to others. 3 months later, representatives from 24 formerly enslaved worlds gathered on Earth. Captain Allison Murphy, now Admiral Murphy, addressed them from a podium in the rebuilt United Nations building. "Today we form a new alliance," she said, "not one of masters and servants, but of equals. Together we will rebuild what the Dominion destroyed and create something better in its place." As ships from many worlds flew peacefully over Earth's cities, children looked up in wonder rather than fear. In schools across the galaxy, they learned about the day that changed everything, when one human voice thundered against tyranny and shook the foundations of an empire.